Hello, and welcome to the podcast for the January-February 2025 issue of the Lift for All newsletter. This is volume 15. Can you believe I've been making these newsletters for 15 years? Pretty wild. Issue 1. The advantages of figuring it out yourself. Many of you know that I enjoy video games. Most frequently, I play on my handheld device, a Steam Deck given to me by my brother. In addition to the Steam Deck, my brother also periodically sends me games for it. My brother's an awesome gift giver, and these games always come with no strings attached. I play the ones I'm interested in and skip the ones that hold no interest. Of course, since school started, I've had much less time to play games, so I was very much looking forward to playing games on the long flight this January, which ended up being from Chicago to Anchorage. When I started up my Steam Deck, I was horrified to realized that I had reset it the month before and forgotten to download any of my usual games to the device. And since the plane had taken off already, there was no Wi-Fi. Instead, the only game that was on there was a game my brother had purchased for me recently called Inside. Inside is a platformer puzzle game, a genre I do not normally play because I am not good at them. This game has puzzles, and I struggle with those types of games. In these types of games, you need to find clues from the environment and figure out how to solve the puzzle. I always felt like I was bad at these games for two reasons. First of all, I did not grow up playing video games, and this puts me at a serious disadvantage. I've only regularly played games for the past year and a half, and many other gamers have played their whole lives or close to it. Second, I feel as if I'm not good at these types of problem-solving games. While I am good at problem-solving in many situations, I'm not good at artificial problem-solving, such as escape rooms and this genre of games. I once failed at an escape room designed for children. It was the one at Syracuse Mall, if anybody is curious. I failed due to two reasons. I generally do not play platformer puzzle games, ever. And when I do, I frequently get stuck at puzzles and Google things or ask my brother what to do next. As a matter of fact, I had started this very game when he had first bought it for me just to get stuck on the second puzzle and turn it off frustrated. However, I had a long flight ahead of me and was already finished reading my books, so out of sheer boredom, I powered on my Steam Deck and started playing. I remembered the second frustrating puzzle and tried completing it for a few minutes. I was still stuck. Instinctively, I reached for my phone, planning to Google the answer or maybe message my brother. Then I remembered, right, no Wi-Fi. I actually powered down my device at that point, frustrated. A few minutes later, when the reality of being stuck on a 5-hour flight with nothing to do sunk in, I turned my device back on and went back to the puzzle. This time I looked more carefully for clues in the environment. Knowing I didn't have Google to bail me out made a difference. It was not comfortable, but after 10 arduous minutes, I solved the puzzle all by myself. I was surprised because I knew I wasn't good at these types of games and I was just sure that I couldn't do it. I kept playing, sure. Sometimes I'd instinctively reach for my phone, intending to either Google a difficult puzzle or ask my brother, but I did that less and less as time went on. About 2 hours into the flight, I realized I was getting better. It wasn't taking me as long as expected to solve the puzzles. I was noticing important clues earlier. About an hour later, I realized that despite my initial comfort, at doing something difficult, I was actually having fun. I wasn't reaching for my phone anymore. While I may not start playing platformer games exclusively since the trip, I feel differently about my abilities I never would have developed if I had not been forced to do so. In this world, it has gotten so easy to look up answers. We are used to checking Google, instantly asking a friend or expert, or having tutorials and videos on everything we could ever want to do. While this does have value, it seems we are also becoming less comfortable with struggling, less comfortable with figuring things out, less comfortable with our own discomfort. During piano lessons, there are many times that for various reasons, I want to see if a student can figure out something on their own. Sometimes I tell a child who is just learning letter names that their finger 4 needs to go on G. Sometimes I ask them to point to measure 16 in the music. This is uncomfortable. It's hard to figure things out. It's especially hard for parents to watch. It is difficult to watch your child feel uncomfortable and to work through something. It might feel like it would be easier for you to cue them or prompt them. It might feel like it is a waste of lesson time for your child to find a G on their own when you could just point and bail them out. It might feel as if they won't really enjoy piano if it is a struggle, and they will have more fun if you make it easier. Whatever your thoughts are, I ask you to sit with them for a moment. I ask you to really think about why you want to ease their discomfort. Easing it will be the key to working through it. Everything I do during the lesson is purposeful. I am not telling them where the G is because I want them to find it and go through the experience of finding it. I want them to make that connection in their brain. I want them to find their own way of figuring out the information. It might be arduous and it might be uncomfortable, but the next time I ask them to find a G, they might find it a little faster, and the time after that, they might find it a little faster. I'm not asking them to find a G because I'm remote and I can't show them myself. If I'm asking them to find measure 16, it is because I want them to have the experience of working through finding a specific measure and a score. It is not because I can't point. It is because these are skills that they will need and will use. Yes, having your child grow to be independent uses lesson time, but I promise it is it may not feel as if I promise that is a productive use of lesson time. Research shows that we strengthen connections in our brain by figuring things out, not by being told information. What your child might retain for seconds after being cued, they might retain for days or weeks after figuring it out themselves. Yes, your child figuring things out on their own may be frustrating. They may even feel as if they did not have a fun time during lesson. However, our thoughts and opinions on experiences are built over time, and relying on a parent to constantly cue them for notes and information may cause them to have better moments, but overall, their experience with piano will be more frustrating. We love the things we love because we feel confident doing them, and we build this confidence through knowledge. Cueing your child for information includes a wide variety of behavior, some of which I think parents do without even thinking, such as humming the next note, whispering, pointing to a note on the piano or a note on the sheet music, using a word or hand gesture to remind them, mouthing the answer, and more. It's important that we think deeply about why we feel the need to rescue children from even momentary discomfort and work to find better ways of coping during these situations, not only for the children, but for ourselves as well. Since the long flight back, I have found that I am more aware of the urge to rescue myself and others from momentary discomfort of not knowing. I try to work harder at math or physics before checking the answer, and I encourage friends to do the same. And then I have an asterisk because I wrote, research shows that we strengthen connections by figuring things out. And I wrote, if you want to see the research, let me know. I have a list. It's actually, the research is specifically about AI and how AI discourages people from having that feeling where it's like, oh, this is kind of overwhelming, and learning how to work through that feeling, which is obviously a concern that is kind of similar. But anyway, that was a special information just for the podcast listeners. All right, next article. Also, I do want to say to the podcast listeners, these stories actually do happen to me. I almost never exaggerate or change anything in the stories. This stuff just happens to me. Like, I just have, this next story is just kind of funny because it related so much to what I wanted to already write about. And then this happened. It's called Don't Forget to Bring Your Calculator, a gentle reminder that we all struggle. During physics 3 weeks ago, I opened my backpack to realize I'd forgotten my calculator. Oops. I sit near the front too, so it felt extra embarrassing. I'm actually the third row, but the person who sits in front of me dropped, so no one sits in the first two rows, so I'm basically the first row even though I'm the third row. It's kind of weird because it's a giant classroom, and I have no idea why everyone just sits in the middle or back. Anyway, I'd gotten through some of the problems using my phone calculator, but others were more difficult with that calculator. About halfway through class, the professor abruptly stopped lecturing and turned to face the whole class. It is very important you bring your calculators to class, he said sternly. If you cannot work during class, it is a waste of time to even come. My face turned red and I looked away. The professor went on like that for several minutes. I felt very embarrassed that everyone was getting a lecture just because I was forgetful. Later, my friend confessed to me, I forgot my calculator and he lectured the whole class. How embarrassing. He looked right at me. Couldn't you have just mentioned it to me after or something? Wait, you forgot your calculator too? I asked, not even believing that the lecture was for someone other than me. We both ended up laughing because we both thought the scolding was specifically for us. The next week was the week before our test. I realized I forgot my equation sheet. Guys, this class starts at 8:30 in the morning, 45 minutes from my house. Cut me some slack here. Again, halfway through class, he turned to us annoyed. This time I peeked around the room. The guy next to me, who also has the same commute I do, was shifting uncomfortably as the professor lectured us for forgetting our formula sheets. My friend in the second row, he was to the second row to the left, frantically searched his backpack for his. Two people to my right whispered back and forth, making a formula sheet right during class. We were all struggling with the same things. No need for embarrassment because we were all being scolded. This newsletter comes with some tough issues. Maybe they relate to you, maybe they do not. If they do, please know that there are many other families struggling with these very same things that are in the newsletter. If it is really just an issue with you or your child or just your family, or even if it was just a few families, I promise I would do something to address just you. I would not waste class time on one person forgetting their calculator or their formula sheet, which was a little ridiculous for me to think that this very strict science-oriented professor was wasting precious class time, lecturing just me about forgetting my calculator. I mean, we all just get in that vibe for a minute. Anyway, I do want to say a warning to the podcast users. This newsletter does cover some kind of serious or more heavy topics. If you do need to pause or you need to take a break or, you feel like you're not in a great place to be receptive of information, pause, do something else. Don't listen to it today. Listen to it another day. And also let me know too, if the feedback is I was too hard on people or I was too opinionated or it felt too personal. Do let me know, even if you know now from the previous article that it does not relate to just one person or even just a few people. I kind of like my baseline for writing articles is if I see it happening in at least 6 families, then I assume that it's happening in more because I realize I'm only seeing kind of like a sliver or a cross section of what's going on. All right. Next article. Sally really loves the piano. She's really great about everything piano. This article is the first in a series of articles I plan on writing on sibling relationships and piano. This article is about comparing the feelings one child has for the piano to the feelings another child has. Next month, there will be an article about one sibling catching up in the repertoire to another sibling. Note that I didn't actually I said this is a series and then I only told you what next month was because I have some ideas for another month, but I haven't actually planned it. If anybody has things they want to hear about sibling relationships, please let me know because I am happy to cover anything people are interested in. Note, this is the second of 3 articles that deals with topics that feel very sensitive to families. If you need a break before reading on, please do so. It can be challenging to have siblings participate in the same activity, but given the benefits of piano lessons, many families use piano as an opportunity to work through these challenges. And personally, if I ever have children, piano will be something that I have all my children do, as I think its value goes beyond simply learning an instrument. Given any activity where multiple children participate, there is likely to be a difference in the way they respond. In my whole studio, for example, there's a huge range from children who would only grudgingly touch the piano and ask, to students who do spontaneously practice. That's really rare, though. When this happens in one household, though, it becomes incredibly easy to compare responses. It also becomes very easy to break the behavior of 2 siblings into a dichotomy, which often becomes loves piano versus hates piano. It's easy to talk about this without realizing how it's making the children feel when you talk about this in front of them. Honestly, these kinds of generalizations can be harmful for both siblings. Number 1. You may be telling your children that there is only one way to love an activity. When you are saying Sally loves piano, what you might not be saying but are implying is love means Sally goes to the piano spontaneously. Love means Sally doesn't fuss when she practices. Love means Sally always wants to do her lessons. By repeating how much Sally loves piano, you are implying that when love doesn't look like Sally's version of love, it isn't really love. I have really big feelings. My brother does not. When I love something, I really express it with words and actions. My brother does not. On the outside, it may have looked as if he didn't love anything, but the truth is he loves things in a different way, and his way of loving things is just as valid as my way. Number 2, you are telling your children that it is only valuable to do something if you love it. Love is a strong word. There are many things in our lives that we do that we may not feel like we love, but can still add value to our lives. Personally, I do not love running. However, I have limited time, and I recognize that good cardio has many values. And I do enjoy races in the way that many children enjoy recitals. So I run, and I run daily. But if somebody asked me to make a list of things that I love, running probably wouldn't be on it. Your child You and your child can realize that piano has benefits such as raising IQ, improving math and reading scores, improved dexterity, and more without loving practice or loving lessons. Love of activities ebbs and flows. Love for activities can be complicated. It can be fleeting. It can be intense. How love looks changes over time. While now Sally might love piano, I have that in quotes, obviously, if you couldn't tell. In a few months, she might be on a difficult song and want to spend less time at the piano. By reducing complex reactions to a dichotomy, it's easy for a child who no longer, quote, loves piano, unquote, to feel as if their only other choice is to hate it. This is a complex issue with many smaller issues attached to it. While it is wonderful to celebrate the love your child has for piano, there are many other ways to verbalize it and in ways that will not leave a sibling feeling bad about themselves. For example, you can praise each child for things that they are specifically good at in piano. And it doesn't have to be at the same time, but can be something you can share in private with just that child. One thing I love about music is how many different facets there are to excel at. For example, maybe Jane has excellent technique and you can focus on that. Maybe Sally has a lovely tone. Perhaps Jane is exceptionally good at dynamics. Always let me know if you want ideas on your child's strengths. This article was a little intense. What do you think about it? Do you agree? Disagree? Was I missing something? Did this change how you thought about it? There will be more on the topic of siblings in the next newsletter. February challenge. Interview 3 people about a song they love using this form. Please share the results with me. I love seeing the songs chosen and the child's sometimes hilarious reactions to them. I do encourage people to do the challenges. They're pretty fun. They don't get prizes or get something from it, but it's just an opportunity often to learn a little more, to explore music in a different way. And they're fun. The February one I love every year. I don't change it. Sometimes I change them year to year. This one I don't change because I just love seeing the kids' responses to the songs. Registration for the March through June 2025 term. Registration can be found here. I do have the links for both studios. I hope people just know what studio they're in. Registration is due February 24th at midnight Eastern time. I will not be up at midnight my time. It's 4 a.m. your time anyway. As a reminder, students who do not register by the date may not be able to register for lessons later and will likely lose their time slot. This registration does include a short quiz. If you have any issues or questions, please let me know. After registering, you will receive a confirmation letter, which will give you the payment information you need. Payment is due on or before your child's first scheduled lesson in the new term. If you do not register by February 24th, this will be your last newsletter. Occasionally, I have people who, for whatever reason, want to keep receiving the newsletter after they've discontinued lessons. You are welcome to let me know about that if you do want to. I like reading. I think I would too. Like, that's not even just me, being egotistical or whatever. I genuinely just like reading things. I think I would want to keep receiving a newsletter. Junior Festival. Due to the large price change in the UV hall rental, if you guys remember, it was quadrupled. Many groups are scrambling to find viable hall rentals. Because of this, we were limited in where we could hold Junior Festival. We actually made the reservation last month, which is earlier than we have in the past, and we still were rarely limited on dates. For the first time this year, we are going to try having it on a Sunday. Junior Festival will be on June 1st. As always, the specific times will depend on how many students register. So if you guys remember, I asked people to block off basically the whole day, and then after registration closes, I make a schedule. It's not like sports events where you have to stay there the whole day. Your time slot is usually about 30 minutes. And so, you go in, your child performs, you get to be done. Kind of easier than a lot of sporting events, but I do ask people to kind of block off the whole afternoon or the whole day. Junior Festival will be judged by Bonnie Choi, who is an excellent judge. I strongly encourage all students to participate in the event. If, despite your best effort, you are unable to make this date work, we will have several makeup days. This price for Lyft students will stay the same as last year, which is actually less than previous years. It's $20. At one point, I believe we were up to $29, and we were able to take that price down. So that's a good thing. But it's the same as what we charged last year. All right, next article. When the regular piano parent is gone. Well, I do ask the piano parent attends all lessons with their child. Sometimes I do understand that sometimes things come up, and sometimes there is another parent, grandparent, adult sibling, or babysitter there with the child. To make this change disrupt the lesson as little as possible, it is important that the sit-in parent know exactly what is expected of them prior to lesson. This list is just as important for you to share with your spouse if they're unaccustomed to participating in lessons as it is to share with a babysitter. If it is anyone who does not regularly participate in piano lessons, it can be helpful to share these expectations. And even if they have participated in the past, they might not remember. So for you, it might feel as if, well, they were just here 6 months ago and we did this exact same thing then. For them, they've had a whole life in the 6 months and they might not remember exactly what the protocol is. And they might be, more uncomfortable asking questions when they feel like they probably should remember. Anyway, number 1, please make sure they know how to get a hold of me and I of them. Whether there are technical difficulties, either of us are running late, the child becomes ill right before, it is imperative we have a way to communicate. All of those things have happened. This also takes some of the pressure off you being the go-between, so then you're not at a special event trying to text back and forth because your child is throwing up and you need to cancel the piano lesson while you're also trying to find whether you need to leave your special event or not. So just makes things easier. Make sure they know what device is being used, what program, how to use the program, and any potential passwords for the device. While this may seem obvious, it's a lot to remember. Writing it down can be helpful. Make sure they know the time of the lesson and how to get the child ready. Depending on the age of the child, you might want to suggest a good before piano activity such as coloring. It is hard, especially when someone fun is around, to tear a child away from an exciting new toy to sit at the piano. Make sure they know what behavior is expected of them during the lesson. Sometimes the sit-in parent does not realize that they need to be quiet, so they talk or make phone calls or even play music during the lesson. Other times they don't realize they need to sit for the whole lesson and they wander off, causing the child to spend time distracted, wondering when or if they are going to come back. Still other times, the sit-in parent wants to show off their music skills, and they end up helping the child more than ideal. Bonus! Have them give the child specific compliments on their playing, their focus, and or their hard work. I made this handy printable. The link is in the newsletter. It just is like a fill in the blank kind of thing where it's like the lesson is at blank o'clock. We are using application blank. Device you should use is blank. And you can either copy and paste it and edit it yourself in your own document, or you can print it and fill in the stuff with pencil. So please feel free to copy and paste this printable or tailor it to your own needs. You can also print it and fill in the blanks by hand. This will be updated if I think of anything else that should be added. Usually when something goes wrong is when I think of things that should be added. Do you see anything missing? Let me know. Please note, this printable is not a permission for you to miss many lessons. It's a simple way to help families who cannot avoid having the regular parent miss lessons upon occasion. Florence Price Piano Competition. The Florence Price Piano Competition is an international event I hold every year. To participate, students must learn a piece by Florence Price. I strongly encourage all my students in Book 2 and up to participate, as this is good sight reading practice. However, all students of any age and ability are encouraged to participate. If you are interested, please let me know. In the past, we've had close to 100 students, ages 2 to adult, from 8 different countries participate. If you are given a piece to print for your child, please do so before their lesson and work on it between lessons. You have to actually practice it. I don't know why I worded it like that. Entries are due April 9th at midnight, which is Florence Price's birthday. They are $5 and include personalized comments from a judge, a certificate, and for local students, a trophy if you place first place in your age group. These types of events are important for several reasons. They encourage students to work on a harder sight reading piece and complete a piece by a specific date, and any feedback you can receive from a judge is helpful. If your child is not yet in Book 2 and therefore does not sight read, there are several pieces with YouTube tutorials. Congratulations to Jude for finishing Book 5. He had an absolutely wonderful recital. And then I have the schedule, but I have both schedules, and I have a little note that I'm always hesitant to publish the new schedule because I'm worried that families who have not registered will see it and write the dates down and forget that they have to register. So please note that if you have not registered for February lessons, you will not receive a lesson on that day. I will not call your device. I will not, I will assume that you are done with piano. So please make sure that you have filled out a registration. And by the 24th. And if you are not sure if you filled out a registration, please check your email. Please check for that registration confirmation letter. And if you have not received one, feel free to let me know. And I can let you know if your registration was received. The registration confirmation letter, I say like approximately a week before I guarantee that I will send one out. Sometimes I do it right away. I just check it a couple times a week. Anyway, Please let me know what you thought of that newsletter. I know there were some kind of intense articles. Let me know if you have thoughts, if you have ideas for other articles, especially in the sibling series, or anything about that. Anyway, hope you guys have a good month.